You were never meant to hide, but from the moment you could speak, they told you to stay quiet. From the moment you could walk, they told you where not to go. The world wasn't given to you as a place of wonder, it was introduced as a place of danger. Don't talk to strangers. Don't question too much. Don't dream too wildly. You were trained slowly, systematically to fear the world. Nietzsche saw it clearly. Society is built to crush your will, not with violence, but with comfort, with warnings, with promises of safety if you just obey. But the cost of that obedience is far greater than you think. It kills your curiosity, it kills your courage, and worst of all, it kills the self. What you fear is not the world, but your own suppressed power within it. The unknown is terrifying only when you've been taught to shrink. But Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." Your fear disappears the moment you realize your why is greater than their rules. The world is not your prison, it is your proving ground. Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting to be ready. The truth is, this world was never made to comfort you. It was made to challenge you, to sharpen you, to break you open until what's real inside you finally rises. This is the lie of safety, that avoiding fear makes you free. The truth: only when you walk straight into the fire can you remember that you were never meant to burn. There was a time before the fear, before the rules, before the masks, a time when your will was untouched, a time when your spirit hadn't yet been tamed. But they came early, not with chains, but with lullabies of control. Be good, follow this. Fit in. They disguised submission as virtue. They sold fear as wisdom. And slowly, you forgot your original voice. Nietzsche believed that man is not born to obey, but to overcome. To overcome himself. To confront the terrifying beauty of existence, and not retreat. But how can you face life when you've been taught to bow to it? What they fear is not your failure. It's your awakening, because an awakened soul is dangerous. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be seduced by comfort. It knows freedom does not come from running away, it comes from rising above. You were not born to be another cog in their safe machine. You were born to rebel against, to comfortable lie. To walk into life, not as a servant of fear, but as a force of will. Stop asking the world for instructions. Start writing your own laws, because once you remember you were before fear, you will never be afraid again. There was a time long before the applause, long before you knew the price of disapproval, when you were wild. Not wild in the way the world fears, but wild in the way nature intends. You spoke freely, laughed too loud, ran without destination, and asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. But the world doesn't like that kind of freedom. It needs you small, manageable, predictable. So they didn't beat it out of you. That would have awakened your rebellion. No, they praised you when you were quiet. They smiled when you obeyed. They clapped when you stayed inside the lines. Each compliment was a quiet request to abandon yourself, and you agreed over and over again, because all we ever want is to be loved. But Nietzsche warned, love, when tied to obedience, becomes a prison. It teaches you to fear being fully alive. And so you grew cautious, measured. You wore politeness like armor. You buried the fire so deep you forgot it ever burned. But here's the truth: the world you feared disappointing never truly saw you. It saw a version of you edited, diluted, safe. And if you want to stop being afraid, you must reclaim what they tried to extinguish. Not with anger, but with remembrance. You were not born to be a quiet echo of someone else's comfort. You were born to disturb the silence, to roar in a world that whispers. You were born to be unapologetically, uncontrollably you. Think back, to that moment when you were about to speak your truth, but didn't, not because it wasn't real, not because it wasn't burning inside you, but because you imagined their faces, the raised eyebrows, the awkward silence, the shift in the room. That's when fear entered you, not as a monster, but as a whisper. Stay quiet, stay safe. This fear wasn't born in you. It was taught to you every time someone laughed at your idea, every time you were punished for being different, every time you were told to not like that. You learn it, to shrink, to wait for permission before breathing too deeply, and so you became afraid, not of the world itself, but of the world's mirror, of being seen, truly seen. Nietzsche said, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To stand alone is dangerous, but it is the only path to truth. You see, what terrifies them about your truth is not that it is wrong, but that it is free. And freedom always threatens control. To stop being afraid of the world, you must realize this: their opinions are not prisons unless you live inside them. Their judgment is not a blade unless you hand them your throat. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them turn away. You were not born to decorate their comfort zone. You were born to disturb it. And when you stand in your truth alone, trembling, but unwavering, that is when fear dies. Not all at once, but piece by piece, you reclaim your voice. You were told that safety is the goal. Stay out of trouble. Don't ask too many questions. Follow the rules, and in return, life will reward you with comfort, stability, approval. So you listened, you trimmed your edges, you softened your voice, you built a life like a cage you were told was a home. And for a while, it felt good. Safe. But eventually, a storm comes. An illness, a betrayal, a collapse, a moment that shatters the illusion. And suddenly, all that obedience meant nothing. The storm didn't care how quiet you were. It came anyway. That's when you realize. Safety is not found in submission. It is not found in avoidance. It is not found in hiding. You are. Nietzsche once wrote, the secret of greatness is to be everything that one is, without exception. True safety, the kind that cannot be taken from you, lives in your capacity to face life head on. To look chaos in the eyes and not flinch. To know that even if the world burns, your soul remains untouched, because a life built on fear will betray you, but a life built on truth, even if it costs you everything, will return you to yourself. So, no, don't shrink to survive. Expand to live. And if that scares them, let it. There comes a time in every soul's journey when the desire to be understood must die, so that the desire to be real can be born. You were raised to believe that being liked meant being good, that if you were agreeable, polite, and predictable, you'd be safe. But all it did was make you forget who you are. Now, as you begin to awaken, you'll notice the world does not applaud your return to self. It resists it. It mocks it. It calls it selfish. But the truth is this: your light threatens their shadows. Your freedom confronts their submission. Your honesty unsettles their denial. Nietzsche wrote, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. They don't have to hear your rhythm. They don't have to understand your fire. They weren't meant to, because you are not here to be decoded. You are here to burn, to shine with the full weight of your soul. Let them walk away. Let them label you. Let them invent a version of you that makes them comfortable. But do not ever again hand over your truth for their approval, because to be understood by the world is nothing if in the process you lose yourself. And when you find the courage to be misunderstood, you become free. There was a time when you walked into a room and bent your voice to fit its tone. When you smiled, not because you felt joy, but because it made others comfortable. You became soft, not out of compassion, but out of fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of being too much. And so you dim. You learn it to filter yourself. To fold your fire into silence. But Nietzsche warned, the man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends, because growth is not always polite, truth is not always gentle. And becoming yourself will never win everyone's approval. So ask yourself, when did you trade your strength for softness? When did you decide it was safer to be accepted than to be true? The world does not need more agreeable souls. It needs dangerous ones, souls who have faced their own darkness and emerged with fire in their eyes, souls who cannot be manipulated, bought, or silenced, not dangerous in cruelty, but in clarity, not in destruction, but in direction. To stop being afraid of the world, you must become someone the world can no longer ignore. Because when you become dangerous again, not to others, but to your own limitations, the world loses its grip on your throat. There is a version of you the world has taught you to wear. Polished, predictable, pleasing. It smiles. When it wants to scream. It agrees. When it wants to rebel. It conforms, not because it loves peace, but because it fears rejection. This mask is not who you are. It's who you became to survive. But Nietzsche warned us, a life lived in the comfort of lies will never touch the raw glory of truth. He did not preach rebellion for rebellion's sake. He demanded authenticity, a return to the self before the world told you who to be. You cannot love life while hiding from it. You cannot feel the wind while wrapped in layers of performance. So today, burn the mask. Let your voice tremble with honesty. Let your eyes show the pain, the rage, the hope. Let your life become unbearable for those who only knew the character you once played. Because freedom doesn't feel like applause. It feels like solitude. Then truth, then fire. Let them call it selfish. Let them call it strange. But in that moment, for the first time, you will be real. And once you taste that, no lie will ever fit you again. You've asked yourself these questions more times than you can count. You've stood before crowds, imagined their eyes on you, and felt your heart race, not from excitement, but from fear. Fear that they will see through your facade, fear that they will notice your weaknesses. This fear, this anxiety, it runs deep, but it is not your fear. It is theirs. The fear of the world judging you is rooted in their own insecurity. Nietzsche wrote, "There are no facts, only interpretations. The judgment you fear is not a truth. It is a reflection of their own fears and limitations. When you choose to live for their approval, you surrender your power to their perception of you. But what if you stop caring? What if you let go of the need to be understood, to be praised, to be liked? What if you began to live as though your worth did not depend on their thoughts? Because here's the secret: the world judges those who are not themselves, but those who live true to their own heart. Those who embrace their deepest flaws and strengths cannot be touched by judgment. You cannot be defeated by what doesn't matter. So embrace your contradictions, embrace your failures, embrace your imperfections. Let their judgment wash over you like rain. because it does not define you. Your entire life you've been taught to fight, taught to resist the world, to conquer it, to shape it into something you can control. But deep inside, you know this fight never ends. The more you push, the more the world pushes back. The harder you resist, the heavier the burden becomes. Nietzsche understood this struggle. He said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." The more you fight, the more you become consumed by what you resist. And soon, you realize the world does not bend to your will. It is a force beyond your control, one that can only be understood by those who have let go of the need to dominate, to surrender, not to weakness, but to acceptance. You don't need to fight the storms. You don't need to battle the chaos. You need to embrace it, not as a victim, but as someone who understands that true power lies in letting go. Let go of the need to control how others perceive you. Let go of the need to force outcomes. Let go of the belief that you must always be in charge. When you stop forcing, when you stop fighting, you stop being a slave to the world, and only then can you truly be free. The strength of letting go is not in what you lose, but in what you gain. A life that is not dictated by the whims of others, but led by the quiet power of surrender. Let the world move as it will, and you will find that you move with it effortlessly. There's a certain safety in the known, the world you've created, the patterns you follow, the familiar roads you walk every day. But deep down, you've always known there's more beyond what you can see, beyond what you control, and yet you avoid it because the unknown terrifies you. Nietzsche spoke of this fear when he said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." The unknown calls to you, urging you to step beyond your comfort, to leave the cages of habit and step into the wild. But that step is the hardest. It is a leap into uncertainty, where nothing is guaranteed. And the fear of that leap has stopped many from living their true life. But here's the paradox. The unknown isn't your enemy. Your fear of it is. And that fear is a prison you've built for yourself. The moment you realize that fear is just a shadow, a projection of your own insecurities, you will find the courage to step into the unknown. It's only in stepping into uncertainty that you will truly begin to live, because life is not about knowing what comes next. It's about trusting that you will handle whatever it is. The world is vast, and you are made for it. You were never meant to play small. You were meant to explore, to challenge, to grow. So stop hiding behind the walls of comfort. Step into the unknown, and discover who you are meant to become. From the moment we are born, expectations are placed upon us. Expectations from parents, teachers, society. We are told what to be, what to do, how to succeed, and in these expectations, we lose ourselves. Nietzsche saw this as a dangerous trap, a cage built from the good intentions of those who love us. But it is still a cage. You are the one who shapes your own destiny. Nietzsche proclaimed, "But how can you shape your life if you are constantly trying to live up to the standards of others?" These expectations, though they may be filled with love or approval, weigh heavy. They build up over the years, and before you know it, you are carrying not only your own dreams, but those of everyone who has ever projected theirs onto you. But the truth is, you were never meant to live for someone else's dream. The weight of other people's expectations will always crush your spirit unless you set them down. You must be willing to disappoint others in order to make peace with yourself. Freedom comes when you stop measuring your worth by what others think of you. Freedom comes when you stop trying to be the person they want you to be and start becoming the person we're always meant to be. You don't need to live up to their standards. You need to live up to your own. The burden of expectation is heavy, but it is not your burden. Drop it. The world is always telling you to surround yourself with people, to be part of the crowd, to never be alone. From social media to family gatherings, we are taught that connection with others is the ultimate goal. But Nietzsche believed that true strength comes not from the number of people around you, but from your ability to stand alone. The loneliest person is not the one who's physically alone, he wrote, but the one who is surrounded by people but still feels utterly alone in their heart. When you are constantly seeking validation from others, you give up the one thing that is uniquely yours, your own voice. You become a reflection of those around you, a patchwork of expectations, needs, and demands. But there is power in solitude. There is power in being alone. When you are alone, you are not being influenced by the opinions of others. You are free to think, to reflect, to create. It is in solitude that you find clarity, a space where you can hear your own thoughts and follow your own path. Loneliness is not a prison. It is a sanctuary. It is where you are most yourself, where you connect with your deepest desires, your true passions, and your authentic self. Don't fear being alone. Embrace it, for it is only in solitude that you can truly discover who you are. Only then can you know the world in its true form, and not the version of it shaped by others. You are not meant to depend on the crowd for your happiness. You are meant to build your own foundation, and that begins in the quiet moments, in the stillness of your soul. So next time you feel alone, remember, you are in the presence of the most powerful version of yourself. We live in a world that values harmony, peace, and a smooth, untroubled life. The idea of conflict is often painted as something negative, something to be feared or avoided at all costs. But Nietzsche had a different perspective. He believed that it is precisely within conflict that we find our true power. Without music, life would be a mistake, Nietzsche said. But what is music without dissonance, without the tension of opposing forces? What is the human soul without the inner conflict that challenges and shapes it? Life is full of contradictions. You are not simply one thing. You are a mixture of desires, beliefs, fears, and hopes. The tension between these forces creates friction, and that friction is where growth happens. Instead of seeing inner conflict as something to escape from, view it as the arena in which you will forge your strength. The battle within is a reflection of the battle outside, and those who can master their own inner turmoil and face the world with unshakable resolve. When you stop trying to smooth over the rough edges of your soul, you will find that it is in the struggle that you begin to understand yourself. It is in confronting the parts of you that seem weak, broken, or contradictory that you will discover your true potential. Nietzsche's philosophy was not about finding peace by avoiding conflict, but about embracing it, understanding it, and using it as a tool for self-mastery. It is through the struggle that you build resilience, and it is through that resilience that you find your true freedom. You are not broken because you feel conflicted. You are human, and it is in this conflict that you can find your strength. From an early age, society teaches us that there is a set path to follow. Go to school, get a job, settle down, retire. We are told that success is measured by the number of steps we take on this predetermined journey. But Nietzsche challenges this notion. Do not follow in the footsteps of the wise, he urged. Seek what they sought. The greatest minds in history did not follow the conventional paths. They created their own. They broke free from the expectations of society, and in doing so they discovered a new kind of freedom, the freedom to live authentically, to truly stop being afraid of the world. You must give up the idea of conformity. You must stop trying to fit into molds that others have cast for you. You are not a copy of someone else. You are a unique expression of life itself, capable of creating something entirely new. But creation requires courage. It requires stepping into the unknown and being comfortable with uncertainty. There are no guarantees when you walk your own path. You may stumble, you may fail, but in each of those failures you are learning and evolving. This is where true freedom lies, not in following the path, but in forging your own way and rejecting the chains of societal expectations and embracing the uncertainty that comes with self-creation. You are not confined to the past. You are not bound by the stories others have written. You are the author of your own journey. Don't fear making your own way. Don't be afraid to step off the beaten path, for in doing so, you are embracing your true freedom, the freedom to become exactly who you were meant to be.